Hey guys, I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to talk about ladder resets and basically starting new characters from fresh and which ones you can start to learn to play with budget gear kind of. This is not going to be completely the budget guide. I have a few budget guides out there, but it's basically how to start playing effectively and farming effectively in a new ladder setting so that you can get characters that can do like what this Blizzard Sorceress is doing, which is farming the Hell Travancore by herself super quickly and easily. Um, so we're going to go through a few different characters. The one I left out was the Barbarian because he's the most gear-dependent class in the game. I do actually have a budget Barbarian guide, but it still has quite a few items that you probably would want to use one of these characters to gather those few basic items first. There's quite a few other budget Barbarian guides out there, just Barbarian guides in general that use a variety of items. And so I just went ahead and left those out. Now, the rest of the builds are all kind of based off a few items that I think that's very easily attainable by just doing normal Countess runs and Nightmare Countess runs and collecting socketed items. So most of these are going to be caster builds. In fact, all of these are going to be caster builds actually. So they're all going to rely on not that much gear. I used a few of the characters at fairly low level. And yeah, I demonstrate a few of them at level 60 to show how good they are even at a low level. I didn't have a level 60 for every class to use, but I'll give you a pretty good example. So here we go. We'll get into that stuff right now. Let's start with the Druid. So the build that we're going to do with the Druid is the Wind Druid. So you do that by putting 20 points into Tornado, which is your main ability, 20 points into Hurricane, which is the thing I just casted, and 20 points into Cyclone Armor. Then after that, you put into the rest of the Tornado synergies. But before you do that, you definitely also need to get 1 point into Oak Sage and 1 point into the Bear. And the reason you do the Bear is you can cast him. He's a big tank. He takes a lot of damage for you. And then the Oak Sage, you want 1 point into it, and then you want quite a few points into it at the end. I think you want to close to max it out when you get max level. But it gives you a bunch more life and stuff like that, so it makes you more tanky. Cyclone Armor is great because you can cast it, and it absorbs your lightning, fire, and cold damage, which are some pretty um, dangerous things for druids in hell mode when you have low resistances. So you can actually play this build with fairly low resistances. These are only scary things here in the pits. This is one of the things you can farm. But Wind Druid is not going to be the fastest at any specific thing, but he can run almost anything in the game. He can run bosses, he can run the pits, he can run chaos, he can run a lot of different places because he's got a source of physical damage from his tornadoes, and he's got the hurricane that does cold damage as well. So that said, he's a pretty powerful class. All I'm using is a Spirit Sword and a Crystal Sword. That's Talthol Ort Am and a Crystal Sword. Ral Ort Tal and a Shield, which is Ancient's Pledge. It gives like 50 to or 48 to all resistances, something like that. I'm using a Lore Helmet Ort Soul, which gives 1 to all skills and like 30% 30% lightning resist, and then a Smoke armor, which is Nephlum. These are all pretty easy runes to gather. Nephlum gives $50 resists. So basically I stacked up some resists, a little bit of castrate from Spirit, and I can already kill a ton of stuff in the game. Now obviously I think I shopped some gloves and boots. You can try to stack some of your other resists a little better. I think in this case I got some fire resist and lightning resist boots and gloves just to kind of give myself a little bit more resist. But you can shop those from Nightmare or Hell. Just going to the vendors and getting some magic items of those. So As you can tell, at level 60, this druid actually still can kill. This is the pits, level 85 area, so you're killing some of the harder mobs in the game, and it's pretty simple for this class. It's still dangerous. Anytime you're at the start of the game, it's going to be dangerous. But the more you put into the class, the more life you build up, the more items you get, the more damage your guy will do. You'll just notice all this stuff will get easier and easier. So the only downfall to running a class like this, druids are not all that fast, and they really benefit from having teleport, and so a lot of people don't like running them unless you have an Enigma. But if you love the druid class, this is one you can definitely do. It's a little more challenging than some of the budget ones, but it's nowhere near as challenging as a barbarian. So give it a try if you want to play druid, and when you do get Enigma, these guys are amazingly fun. Telly stomping stuff. One of the biggest frustrating things is sometimes these tornadoes don't go exactly where you want them to go, so you can cast 30 of them and sometimes they won't hit the target. But other than that, it's a great class. This one's level 60, like I said, pretty low level to be still killing stuff in the pits. And we'll go ahead and move on. Oh, before I move on, there's one last thing I'd like to talk about. So as you notice, I don't have a merc here. Druids are pretty mana efficient, so you can actually get an Act 5 merc with the druid and put make a Lawbringer rune word. It only requires the Am, Lem, and Co runes, which are pretty easy to obtain, and it can cast Decrepify on mobs, which will actually break their physical resistance. So that's something else you can do on an Act 5 Barb merc and help your druid out a lot. One of the other classes that's a pretty easy class to get started on the ladder resets is an assassin. They kill really well through the beginning of the game. You can use the fire traps at the start to get you through normal and nightmare. They do tons of damage, and then you can switch to lightning traps when you get towards the end of nightmare or early hell. And really all you need is 1 point into each of the shadow disciplines, except on weak characters I like to pump a few extra points in Fade. As you can see, I just popped Fade there, and I had above 50 in almost all my resistances, which is just basically free resist. It also, each hard point in Fade also gives you a physical damage reduction. So if you're at like 10, it gives you 10% physical damage reduction, which is pretty awesome. And this class is actually really, really good to solo with. A really good area clearer. So I'm primarily going to be clearing pits with this as well, just like the druid. But you use primary abilities lightning with these lightning sentry traps, and then you can drop some death sentry traps, and you'll see me occasionally switching between the two. So as soon as your light sentry traps get a corpse down, those death sentry traps will start exploding those corpses and be the biggest part of your area clearing. So you notice I'm just setting traps around, and they're starting to explode those corpses. Now this build is using the exact same gear essentially as the druid was, just a spirit sword, Ralort Tal shield, smoke chest piece, and a lore helmet. So this is very good area clearer. You can use this Mind Blast ability I just did. That'll, especially on the lightning immunes like I did now, you can use that either to just run past them, like I think I'm just going to run past these here, yep, or you can get them, that makes them kind of turn. If you Mind Blast them enough with that little thing above their head, it makes them attack their own allies. So they kind of like turn on the other enemies, and you can use them kind of as temporary meat shields. So that just kind of converts them for a second. It's a really good ability. You can also use this Cloak of Shadows, which makes it so anything not right up next to you can't really see you. So if you want to get past mobs that are right up against you and you're worried they're going to kill you, you cast Cloak of Shadows for a minute, and you can actually get away fairly effectively. So again, the more lightning abilities you have, the better. Once you max out your lightning traps and your death trap, putting a bunch of points into, or the rest of your points essentially into Fire Blast is great, because once you're a little bit more geared up and you're higher level, you can use Fire Blast actually as well as just to drop a bomb on the things that are lightning immune, like these archers. I could be throwing Fire Blasts at them, and that would be killing them as well, helping me kind of get corpses down for the death sentry trap. So once you get those better fire bombs, see I threw some at mine, but mine are just super weak. But anyway, that's the idea. You can kind of throw those fire blasts out. I like to keep that on left click, and then you can kind of hold shift and cast them. But anyway, that's the assassin in a nutshell. Super good at clearing the pits. One other thing that they're extremely good at is clearing cows. Now you need a little bit better gear to clear cows because they have a little more life, so it takes a little bit more damage just to get the first cow or to get the first corpse. But once you do, you can kind of, as you can tell, I'm doing the same thing with this character, so it takes a little while to get a corpse. But once you toss your traps down and start getting corpses, oh man, the cows just start falling real fast. So that's assassin in a nutshell. We'll go to the next class. So the next class we're going to talk about is the Amazon. Amazon, again, I'm using the same gear. There'd be quite a few things different you'd want to use, but I'm just showing you that you can use the absolute bare minimum gear. I'm still using a smoke. You could use a treachery, which makes your attack speed faster. That makes your javelins so faster. It's really important. But really, I'm using white javelins right now. I just built the standard Javazon build. You can go look it up online. It's very simple. The main thing you want is enough Pierce to get through these cows, and you just want to herd them into a huge group, because when you have that Pierce going on, the more cows that are grouped up, the quicker they die. So the idea is to herd up a bunch into a big group and run cows with it. You can basically do it with virtually white items. I wouldn't suggest doing it with just white, but these are white javelins that I'm using. Literally the basic normal mode Act 1 javelin you can buy from Charcy. So, but you pretty much run around. So one thing that'll happen when you don't really have good gear yet for them is you might not be fast enough, so you want to stack faster run walk on your character. You'll be running away if you get these fast packs. You have trouble. So one of the things you can kind of do, this is kind of something I do, is make sure you drag them away from the red portal, and then you can kind of drop a portal away, and then just avoid that area after that. You can go through your TP and then back through the red portal and just avoid that cow or that area. Run to the next pack. Now, in cows, you want to make sure you're not trying to kill every little mob. So I'm going to get a huge herd here. This is the big thing, is just round them all up, get them all together, and then throw a bunch of jabs at it. But you don't want to be throwing at the little stragglers, because it's going to waste a lot of time. This is a great rune hunting area, but the big thing is just killing as many as you can in a big pack, but then leaving a few more stragglers and go to gather the next herd. That's going to be the most efficient, most effective way to do these cow runs. But Javelins can gather a lot of socketed items, really good socketed items, because they usually run low MF. And so you can find a lot of good socketed items here, a lot of runes, a lot of jewels and charms. So they're very effective at the start of the ladder when you run this Javazon build. So that's one I would suggest as a early wealth building technique. These Javazons are really easy to get through nightmare mode and everything. As soon as you get this lightning fury, you're good to go. Now you might consider going boson for the first 20-30 levels. Some people say it's easier with like exploding arrow and that kind of stuff, but it's all your own choice. It's not too hard to run in the early game, and pretty much any character can just fill a weapon full of chip gems and hope for the best. So that's going to be Amazon in a nutshell. Let's talk about another class now that is a really good cow runner, and probably one of my favorite classes in the game, the Necromancer. So as a Necro, one of the first little tricks you always got to remember, this is going to be a summon Necromancer build. It's the least gear dependent build. But if you go to this Nilithox red portal in Act 5, there's a bunch of free corpses here, so you don't even need to start the game. You don't have to go build corpses to get skeletons. Just run in the portal and gather a bunch. Boom, done. You can actually run a summons Necromancer like this through the whole game completely naked. It's just one of the easiest things. For this run, I actually made a mercenary. Mercenary is actually the most important guy to have gear. It's actually even more important than your actual Necromancer having gear, just because he helps kill kill things faster and create that first corpse so you can start a chain corpse explosion. So you want to be casting amp damage on these cows. And then in this case, I have just an Insight Merc with a Cryptic Axe. He's got some basic stuff, a Tal's helmet and like a smoke runeward, I think is the chest piece. Just super basic. So you want to cast amp damage on the cows here. And then as soon as you get a corpse down, like my Merc just killed that and created the corpse, you're just going to spam corpse explosion. Now, if you notice, I've been dropping these bone walls. One thing that's super useful in the cows, especially for necromancers, is that you can just cast bone walls, and for some reason, it pisses off all the cows. The cows just go insane for these bone walls. They'll run from like 10 screens away and just mob your bone walls. So on one hand, it's really helpful because, well, I'm going to kill the Cow King here, but normally you don't want to do this, but it doesn't matter in Pluggy, so just as a FYI. But anyway, these bone walls will protect your army, and as well as piss off all the cows and bring them, like herd them to you essentially, so that you can corpse explode after you get that first body. Sometimes you can kind of chain these bodies together like I did, waiting so you can kind of get further and further down to the big pack. But the only other thing that necromancers don't really have, and that's really useful to have, is a source of teleport. You can shop Act 2, you can shop a Act 2 Nightmare, excuse me. You can shop a staff from Drognan. That's the easiest place. And it just has teleport charges, not Enigma, but you can do that. And if you teleport with an army like this, it stacks them all on top of each other, so you can target a single cow, which is really useful. So I've got teleport here on my, I have an amulet of teleport, which I find really nice for, so I don't have to switch weapons. But if you notice, I teleported right there, put my whole army in one spot, and it helps me create that first corpse a little bit faster. So that's the gist of doing these runs. Those bone walls, gather them up, you teleport on top with your army, they create a corpse, and it's just as simple as that. These cow runs are just super easy for Necro. Now you can also run Chaos, Pits, any Worldstone Keep, any of the area clear areas. Necros are great at. I tend to like the Pits quite a bit too as well. So you can do those if you get bored of here. But cows will find you high runes fast, and that is something you can do on an early Necromancer. So again, this is using the same gear as the other classes essentially. So now we're going to go to Paladin. This is the build that I really kind of started writing guides about and got into Diablo 2 theory crafting. I wanted to make a Trav running build that was super cheap and easy to get started on the ladder. This is one of the most effective ways I've found of gaining wealth in the start of a Diablo 2 ladder is by building a Hammerden, running the Wizard Spike, which gives 75 to all resist and 50 faster cast rate, a Spirit Paladin Shield, a Smoke Armor, and a Row Rune and a Helmet. And that gives your character, with the 3 resistance quests, that gives your character max resist in hell and 75 faster cast rate and a good amount of mana. And you can run these Trav runs for high runes and jewels and all the other stuff I've talked about in my videos that are good about these Trav runs. You can run these starting at like level 60. It's ridiculous. I've leveled tons of characters through this. Hammerdens are great at these Trav runs. And Hammerdens can effectively run everything in the game. The only problem is you need a source of teleport as well if you want to run some of the areas where you got to kind of like do boss running or any of that kind of stuff. But running these Trav runs is great. You could also do it with those same items that I had on the other classes, but I decided to talk about Wizard Spike. Wizard Spike is one of the most beneficial items you can get early game for any caster class, because all those resistances as well as those the faster cast rate and the mana is super, super useful. So if you got a Spirit Shield, a Smoke Armor, and the Wizard Spike, and a Row Rune to put in your helmet, or some, whatever source of another 30 fire resist, you can have a max resist casting character in this game. It's just a very effective build. Works for any of these caster classes I've talked about so far. So now we're going to go to the absolute king and the final one, which is what most people use to start off in the ladder. Now, I'm not saying that this is the best class, yada, yada, yada. You should play this. You know what? I don't play this usually for the most part at the start of a ladder. I I could. I play this in single player right now because I'm trying to farm high runes, and it's the most efficient. Blizzard sorceresses, I'm showing you now on my fully geared one. I'm sure everybody knows the basic Blizzard source build. If you don't, look it up online. There's a billion guides on it. But you can basically kill everything in the game with a Blizzard Sorc and a reasonable Merc. Basically that same Merc I was telling you about. Insight, Weapon, Smoke Armor, and Tal Rash's helmet. Something with Life Leech basically for your Merc's helmet. So you can farm Act bosses just like I did Andariel. You can farm the Ancient Tunnels here, which is the eye level 85 area, just like the Pits or like Chaos, any of that kind of stuff. This is every item in the game can drop here, just like Pits. So again, super easy to farm with this guy. What you want to do is put Glacial Spike. Some people like what is it? Not Frostbolt. Ice Blast, that's the one. Some people like to put Ice Blast on left click. It does a little more damage, but it's only single target. For earlier game, I like Glacial Spike because it freezes packs of mobs together while you blizzard on top of them. Makes your life a lot safer, just like that little pack that I froze together, or that pack. My Glacial Spike now in this guy is so strong it actually kills most of the things in 1 or 2 hits. So I could pretty much Glacial Spike everything to death. But Blizzard does a ton of damage. You don't need much gear to make it strong. You could pretty much run these Ancient Tunnels runs if you're careful and you use the Glacial Spike good. You can run these from like level 45, probably 40 even maybe onward, and it takes a little bit of time, but this is an eye level 85 area. You could exclusively level up here, just like it's the Chaos Sanctuary. And yeah, you can use any of those basic same gear setups. One other thing that people don't know a lot about is using telekinesis, and I'll show that in a little bit. But you can use telekinesis to hit open chests. This is the lower Kurast where most people run those super chests to find high runes. So again, having this teleport it's the best for sorceresses to run it because they have that source of teleport and can run these super fast. These are a little bit better maybe for single player or slash Diablo where there's no limit on your game size or how many games you make per minute. But yeah, you can farm them really fast with a sorceress. And yeah, that you can also stack a lot of MF with a sorceress, so that's one of the great things. One other thing to note just about lower Kurast, and I forgot to mention this with the assassin. That's actually another great class to run lower Kurast with if you don't have a sorceress. You can use burst of speed and run really fast with it. And assassins actually don't need keys to open locked chests. It's just one of their natural abilities. Kind of one of those funny things. I never learned it until I played the game for almost 20 years, and then I kind of figured that out. I was going, holy crap. They don't need keys. Anyway, kind of just a stupid little tidbit. But they're fast at running lower Kurast if you don't have a Sorc. But for the most part, I suggest using a Sorc if you're going to run that area. So the other thing you can do with a Sorc, I'm going to talk about this here. Let me kill my Merc real fast. Yeah, let him die. Because I want to show you the river trick for Mephisto. I guess I'll just hang on to this thing here. Which is how you kill Mephisto. Mephisto is one of the most efficient ways to run the act bosses. You can do what's called quest glitching, and it's where you take 2 characters if you can use 2 accounts. Anyway, you can look up quest bugging, Mephisto, but you can just teleport across the river like I just did here where he can't hit you. You kind of drag him over to that river area, teleport across, and then you can just cast on him and he can't touch you. So that's why I did it without a Merc. You don't want a Merc because he'll attack your Merc when you do it. Now here's a Trav run I'm doing on the Blizzard Sorc. This is super easy. A little bit harder when you're a fresh Blizzard Sorc, but fairly easy nonetheless. And one of the things is Turk Ice Fist guy, he's always cold immune. So most people just ignore him. I even just ignore him for the most part. But if you want to kill him, you have a reasonably strong Merc, you can use this telekinesis trick. A lot of people don't know about this either. This is one super important thing for the Blizzard Sorc. So if you get mob that's immune to cold, but you can't kill it. The main thing you do is static field. Everyone knows swords put one into static field. So you can get around to half health in hell. But then you start quickly casting telekinesis on him. And if you hit him right with it, it puts him into this hit recovery. You see how he's backing up? He's in hit recovery and can't attack. So as he goes in that hit recovery animation, you can just let him freely attack the mob that he's hitting. The mob won't be able to hit back. So that's what we got for this video. This is basically just outlining again those builds that I would suggest for a new ladder. Specifically, these builds are great for slash Diablo, where there's it's more about killing a lot of mobs and the way their drops work. Good for the new ladder on BNet. Because you can't make games all the time, so you want to have like longer MF runs. Running pits, running those type of things are better than just Mephisto runs where you run them too fast. So that's the gist of a lot of these builds. You can get most of the stuff the first day you play the ladder if you have a hard little grind there. And this should help you get started this upcoming ladder. Good luck, and let me know if you like this video, subscribe, any of that stuff, and see you next time, guys.